Let's look at this related rates question that asks the top of a ladder slides down a vertical wall at a rate of 0.15 meters per second. At the moment when the bottom of the ladder is 3 meters from the wall, it slides away from the wall at a rate of 0.2 meters per second. Based on that, how long is the ladder? Okay, now related rates questions throw a lot of information at you at once and are often really confusing, but you just have to learn how to unpackage these things. And so my 5-part process helps do this, and I have a video explaining that, and I think that will help. It just helps you unpackage. Okay, so first, what we need to get is a figure. We need to draw a picture. All right, so in this example here um, we have some sort of wall. They don't mention it's a right angle, but it is. And we have a ladder. They don't mention that it's green either, but it is a green ladder. A ladder leaning against this wall. And we know that the ladder is going this direction at 0.15 meters per second, and out this direction at 0.2 meters per second at the very instant when I'm 3 meters away from the wall. Okay, now what I'm trying to figure out is how long the ladder is. So I'm going to give that a name. I'm going to call that R. Okay, and so part 2 is to identify what's known and what's unknown, or what we're looking for. Okay, so what is known here? Well, we might need to know some variables, so I'm going to call this direction the x direction, and the up and down direction I'll call the y direction. And so I know at a given moment in time that x is 3 meters. Okay, I also have these speeds, these 0.15 meters per second. What is that? Well, if you notice, the words rate are in the question. Rate is always a tell that I'm talking about an instantaneous rate of change, otherwise known as a derivative. Okay, so here I have that dx dt at this given moment in time is 0.2 meters per second. And I also know that dy dt is a negative 0.15 meters per second. And why is it negative? Because the ladder is moving down. Okay, now the question is, what am I looking for? So I am looking for r, but the thing about r, the ladder doesn't change size as it's sliding down. So r is a constant. And so there is actually no derivative of r, or the derivative of r with respect to time is 0. So the way we're actually going to solve this is by identifying y. We're going to find y instead. And finding y will help me figure out what r is. Because once I find y, I'll have two sides of a right triangle, and the third side, through Pythagorean theorem, will give me exactly what I need. Okay, so now the question really is, how do I relate x and y? So, part 3 here, you want to relate your rates. And so how do you do that? Well, I don't have any formula that tells me the relationship between dx dt and dy dt, but I do have a formula that helps me relate x and y. And so in general, with related rates, that's the approach you want to take. So here I do know through Pythagorean theorem that x squared plus y squared equals r squared. Okay, and one other thing we know that we didn't mention here, but x, y, and r are all positive, right? We're not going to have negatives in our directions and in our length of a ladder. Okay, so there's my related rates. There's a way I can relate my variables. And then part 4, I need to use implicit differentiation to get these rate of changes into my equation. Alright, so here when I take the derivative of x squared plus y squared equals r squared, I get 2x dx dt plus 2y dy dt equals the derivative of a constant r squared, which is 0. Okay, so now if you think for a moment, I know x, I know dx dt, and I know dy dt. That means I can solve this equation for y. Okay, so I like to do this algebraically first and then plug in everything I know. So I know 2y dy dt equals a negative 2x dx dt. So now I can divide both sides by 2 dy dt and end up with negative x dx dt divided by dy dt. Okay, and at this point I know everything, right? I know all these values here. Okay, and so part 5 is to solve. And so all I need to do is just plug in my numbers. So that is y equals, well, I know that x is going to be 3, so I have negative 3 times 0.2 divided by a negative 0.15. Okay, so the negatives can cancel out here, and so I have a 3. It might be easier to say this like this, 20 over 100 divided by 15 over 100, which is the same thing as saying 3 times 20 over 100 times 100 over 15. So I have some stuff canceling out. The hundreds cancel out. The 20 and the 15 cancel out. Let's see, so I have 3 times 4 over 3. So I end up with y being 4 meters. Okay, so at this is at this very specific moment in time, I have x is 3, y is 4. So then I can go back and figure out then r squared is 3 squared plus 4 squared, which is going to be 9 plus 16, which is 25. So r is 5 meters. And there it is. There's our answer. Again, related rates questions can be kind of tricky, but hopefully this process can help you unpackage them correctly and take out some of the mystery involved. If you need any help, I'd be glad to help, and I just hope it makes sense. Thanks for watching.